And step 7 covers some changes on editing the document which we're going to print. Now the document has been pre-configured and supplied with the installation of AutoDoc HSE. So you can find that by using WordPad, by looking in your Start menu, choosing Run, and just typing WordPad. And you can open the file itself by looking for it in your C drive or the installation folder that AutoDoc HSE was installed to. In a default installation, it will be located here in that Quick Start invoice. Now if we go back to the Quick Start guide, we can see that it's requesting us to make the following changes under editing: to change the email address to your own email address, or one that you can check your email on, and change the fax number to your own fax number. And we'll leave this translations exercise till last. So we'll change this email address and we'll change that fax number. And that's it for step 7. So moving on to step 8 is printing your document. Now to do that, all you need to do is go File, Print, choose the AutoDoc HSE printer, and hit the print button. Now we'll move back to the AutoDoc application itself and have a look at the log, and we'll see some action happening here. See down the bottom there's some processing information there. So you can see here it's been printed, faxed, emailed, and there's 2 PDF archive copies. Okay, the email's arrived here, and you'll see it has the sender's details and has a subject heading which includes the recipient's name, the document type, and the invoice total. The body of the email has some details from the invoice and contact details for the sender. The invoice itself has been attached as a PDF document, and it looks like this. Now if we go back and open up the fax, we'll see that it has a subject heading, invoice for ABC Automotive, and the invoice itself has been converted to TIFF format for fax delivery. And let's go back and check our archive documents now. Okay, so here in the D drive, we now have this file called simply test, which is what we configured, and this file, which is called invoice for ABC Automotive with the date. Now that file name with the invoice and company name and date has just been created on the fly as a result of processing the print job using the archive paths we just specified. If we go back to the PDF Archive tab and the Form Templates area, we'll see here that we have some variables in the file name. You can easily recognize variables since they're enclosed in percentage symbols. If we just consider the account name variable here, by going back to the resultant archive path, you can see that's been completed with ABC Automotive. Now the reason AutoDoc HSE knows that the account name is ABC Automotive is because over here in the Variables tab we've pre-configured AutoDoc HSE to look for any text with an RGB value of 128, 0 and 0 and to store that text as account name. And if we go back to our invoice, we'll see that ABC Automotive here is written with this brownish maroon colour, which is actually RGB 128, 0 and 0. So AutoDoc HSE has recognised and stored this text, and that's how it's come to be used dynamically to create the archive file name. Now if we open up the second file, we'll see that we have a logo in the top corner, whereas the first file that was created doesn't have the logo. That's because back here in the PDF Archive tab, we check the Use Letterhead checkbox for the second file, but not the first. And the letterhead itself is specified over here in the Letterheads tab. And note that you can also specify different letterheads for different pages of the document. If we go to the Global Setup area now, from the home page, and look at the General tab, we'll see that the system has been pre-configured to look for blue text, RGB 00255, as textual commands, which is why AutoDoc HSE knew to send an email and a fax to these destinations, because they're in blue text. And remember that commands can just as easily be white text, which here would be invisible on a white background, and these variables here can be shaded so close to black that you can't see the difference. So you don't actually need to have a bright multicolored document like this to use AutoDoc HSE. Now, the one last thing you might like to do from the Quick Start guide is to go back to the translations exercise in the Step 7 section. I'll show you how to do that now. So just go back and clear these entries from the log. Now, going back to the document, the invoice document itself, just watch what happens if I put the text overdue on the invoice in red text. And if I now print that and go back to the log, you'll see now that we just have two outputs, a fax and an email. There's no archiving and no printing. Now if I open the email, you'll note that the email refers to an overdue invoice here, here, and here. And the invoice itself is now also stamped with this overdue watermark. Now all we did to achieve these differences was add the text overdue to the invoice. Now if we go back to the configuration console of AutoDoc HSE and look at the form independent translation setup, we'll find this entry here. What this tells AutoDoc HSE is that if it finds this text, overdue, with these RGB values, it should treat the text as if it was a textual command made up of the number 2. What the number 2 does is tells the system to use form number 2. If we go to the form setup area, we'll see that there are up to 99 different forms depending on which version of AutoDoc HSE you're using. Now the first print job was produced under form 1, which includes some archive instructions which we configured here, and some hard copy instructions here, printing to the printer we specified as user printer 1. Now the overdue invoice, because of that translation where the overdue text was treated as meaning form 2, that invoice was processed under form number 2, which is overdue invoice, which you'll note doesn't have any PDF settings or any hard copy settings, which is why it was only emailed and faxed. And you'll also notice that the form itself is called overdue invoice, and the email tab here is configured to use the form name variable here and here, which is why under this form deliveries include numerous references to the overdue invoice, while in the first form, which is just called invoices, there are no references to the invoice being overdue. And if we look at the letterheads tab, we'll see that the letterhead for the overdue invoice form includes the overlay saying overdue, whereas if we move back to the invoice form, form number 1, the overdue text isn't there. So that's the Quick Start guide. AutoDoc HSE has lots more features and functions than you've seen here, so make sure you check out the reference manual for full details. You can get the most up-to-date version of the reference manual from the download section of our website. Thanks for your interest.